Hello, welcome to my sewing room and welcome to Friday Sews. My name is Christine and this is my channel, Christine Sews a Lot. The hashtag Friday Sews was created by Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room. It's a way to connect the sewing community and help us to find, through the hashtag, other sewing vloggers. And I'm going to link Jen's information below. Last week, I watched a video from Michelle from Michelle Sews Again where she was showing some of her ice dyeing fabric, and y'all, it is on point. So if you're interested in ice dyeing, I'm going to link Michelle's video below. Today, what I want to talk about is my sewing room. I recently did a little bit of reorganization, and I thought I'd give you a tour of my sewing room. I know that I really enjoy seeing other people's sewing spaces. It inspires me, and I am a little bit nosy, let's be honest. So I'm going to give you a little peek at my sewing room. But before I do, let me tell you what I'm wearing. I'm going to give you a little twirl of my outfit. This is the Friday pattern sagebrush top, and I'm wearing it with Tilly the Buttons Miette skirt. It's an older pattern, I think. A little wrap skirt. And this is what I'm wearing today. Before we start the tour, I wanted to jump right out there and say that I realize I have too much in this room. I'm overcrowded. I have too many supplies, tools, and other notions in the room. In addition, I have a table that I'm using for my sewing machine and my serger that is too large for the space. It is too deep, coming away from the wall, so it takes up a large footprint and it's just not ideal. But I didn't want to buy any new tables. I wanted to use what I had. It would have been more ideal to have a longer, more narrow table with the serger next to the sewing machine, but I'm making it work, and especially with the changes I've made, it's really working well for me. So enough of this chatter. Let's get on with the tour. This is my sewing room, and I will try very hard not to make you dizzy. So I'm coming in the doorway, and immediately to the left is a very large closet. I have bins of fabric in there and stabilizer and things like that. And then immediately as you come around, I have a Juki sewing machine. Her name is Lucille. And I keep my laptop next to the sewing machine because I'll very often just read my PDF files instead of printing them out for instructions. And all kinds of notions there. And we come around. This is my pegboard on the wall. I made this with the help of my father. I'm quite proud of it, actually. We got the mitered corners and I spray painted it. It was a really fun father-daughter project. Hanging on the right is some embroidery thread, and on the left is a hug from my grandson that he sent me in the mail. And I've got cutting tools, a turning tool, and all kinds of sewing notions stored here. I'll get up a little closer. And I found this really helps to have it keep things tidy and yet still be very accessible. And don't we all just want to stay home and sew? Maybe not so much this last year. Anyway, so below my pegboard, I have a calyx unit. Let me back up a little bit. On the right, I have some more embroidery thread. To the left of that, sewing thread. I have my wonder clips. Below that, I have a tin full of super cute labels that I got from Kylie and the Machine and Paige Joanna and Rosy Cheeks. And Little Rosy Cheeks, yeah. And to the left of that is the project that I've been working on. that I've made a pledge to finish, where I've been rough cutting out my PDF patterns. I have so many that I printed up, and they're covering the guest bed. And putting them in envelopes. And right now I'm just storing them in a cardboard box that was a display box at the store, and it cost me nothing, and right now it's helping me keep it tidy while it's a work in progress. I have my sewing books and some notebooks. I have a big box of buttons and some fabric that I've left on the boards. I used to have all of these cubbies full of fabric, and that wasn't working for me. I used to have these notebooks here on the top shelf, and they were toppling over and pretty precarious. So they're much better inside the cubby. Those notebooks have patterns that I've traced and cut out to certain sizes, and I've got them in sleeves inside the notebook. So over here on this wire shelf, this used to have fabric stacked on it, and it was kind of toppling and not inspiring me to sew. It was more frustrating than inspiration. So this is the biggest change in my sewing room. I got some project boxes, and I put the next several projects that I plan to make inside the boxes along with a pattern, so that it's easy to pull and sew, and I can see what is what. Down on this shelf, these used to be inside my closet that's in this room, and they're kind of heavy, and so I'd rather have them out here because I do reach for them frequently, and they need to be somewhere where it wasn't going to stress with the weight. And these are pretty heavy duty shelves. So I've got a lot of cam snap items, some grommets and other things. So I've got both the dies that go with the table press, and then all the items that I would be inserting, like rivets and grommets and snaps and magnetic snaps, and I use the table press. I moved this down to the floor because it's really heavy, and I was afraid that it would cause my shelf eventually to sag. Not the wire shelf, but the calyx unit. On the bottom, these are garment fabric that I know I'm going to be sewing up soon. And so I've stored them on the shelf. On the left, I have some chambrays and linen. On the right, it's some denim and more linen. I kind of love linen, but if you watch this channel long enough, you will see that. So moving around, over here I have another IKEA unit, and I move the ironing board. I got this unit to fit between the two wire racks and be under the window. And in here, again, I have some fabric that's going to be more immediate sew, so that it's in my sewing room, but it's not taking up space. On top of it, this is a recent acquisition, this ruler holder. I love it. The next time I have to do a waywalk or wawak, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, I'm going to order another one of these, because it helps to keep those rulers, some of them are odd shaped, helps to keep them wrangled a little bit. And I have a few jars on top. This button jar, my Aunt Mary Lou, when I was visiting, let me go through her button jar. And I have some beautiful natural material buttons that I can't wait to use. So that's this. Let me back up. Look at that ironing board cover. I need to make myself a new one. That's for sure. But I'm keeping it real. So I have my ironing board set up all the time because I sew every day, and that means I'm ironing every day, and I iron clothing as well. And I don't want to be setting up and putting down an ironing board when it's in use a good portion of every day. So I leave it set up, and I will just move it to the left or the right depending on what I need to get into. I have underneath my ironing board, I have a sleeve board and some pressing cloths. And on the end in this basket, I keep a tailor's ham. You've seen this before. My little hemming guide and different tools. Let's move this along. Again, I know I should be grateful that I have a room dedicated to sewing, but I think we'd all would like a little bit bigger sewing room. And I hang off the edge a little water and usually my starch. I have a bin between these shelving units, and that's where I'll keep like rolled vinyl or cork and some of my long rulers that won't fit on my other ruling stand. And I have this shelf here. On this shelf I've got hanging these two little organizer bags that I bought on eBay. One I got in an estate sale and got them for a real bargain. And inside they have little zipper compartments, and I have all of my sewing machine feet, specialty feet, stored there. On the top of the shelf unit, I have a very wide tracing paper dispenser along with tracing paper. I've had this roll for 3 years now, and I am getting close to the end. So I'm going to need some more, but it's been a really good value, and I like keeping it here. There's a little teacup garland I made for myself. I had it for a while displayed over the fireplace, but then I moved it to the sewing room. I've got elastic and a couple of bins here to keep it from overflowing. And I've separated them into different sizes and types. And I will save the little Ziploc bags that comes in packaging. If I order something for Amazon and it comes and it's in a little Ziploc bag and I can reuse it, then I do try to reuse it. And it helps me to keep things organized. These are your regular number 3 zippers. I have some of my items that I use in machine embroidery. The brown bin right now, I have some extra clear bags in it and the different hardware that goes with my shelves and machines and tables. Just in case I were to make a change, I still have it. Some more elastic. And you'll notice I have a good deal of elastic. Before the pandemic, I taught beginner sewing classes at my church. And so some of these big boxes of elastic were class materials. Here is some more of my too generous supply of zippers. And there's some zipper tape by the yard. A lot of that is used in bag making. And below I have some Insulbrite, some Thermolam, and this is my precious. This is my first sewing machine. She still sews beautifully and accurately. It's a Husqvarna Viking 400, and she's a little bit of a pet. If I'm traveling and going to a class, that's the machine that I will take because it's lighter. It's my machine embroidery attachment. And that's a bin of some bag in progress. Come around. And this table is oversized, and this is part of my crowded sewing room problem, but it's a table that I have. I don't want to buy something else for this sewing room. I wanted to use as much of what I already had, so I'm using this. There's a lot of wasted space with this because it's so far out from the wall. If I had a do-over, I would go with a longer table and have the serger and the sewing machine sitting next to each other. I do use both of my machines. Sometimes I use them both in the same day, but I alternate between them depending on what I'm sewing. This is my Husqvarna. It is a combination sewing machine embroidery machine. And back here I have light, move that out of the way. I keep my bobbins in a basket to kind of keep them under control. I have a couple of thread racks. I actually picked these up at an estate sale, and they're super handy, particularly when I'm embroidering and I'm going to be using several different colors, that I can take out the colors I'm going to use and put them on the racks in the order I'm going to use them, and then I go and I put them away on the main sewing rack. In this little basket, I have offcuts of tracing paper. I'll have a couple of big pieces that I might be able to use, like for a children's pattern. It's too small to use for a pattern that I'm cutting out for myself, but it might be just the right size to use for either a collar or a children's pattern. And then I have smaller cuts that I use when I need a little paper underneath my sewing machine, and that's what I do. I've got a couple of drawers where I'll put notions, and over here's my serger. It's a Husky Lock 901. I bought that used several years ago, and it really does a nice job. I'm going to show you under the table. In my effort to use some of that dead space, that pink container is an organized container, and I have mostly in there some extra sewing supplies as a way of storing them. So when I need to replace my pins, I go in there and get my pins. But primarily I would use that when I was teaching sewing classes. I didn't dare leave scissors at the church. I just knew that somebody would go in and borrow them and cut paper. So I'd bring that back and forth. And then that is my trash can for my sewing room. So this is my sewing room. This is my happy place. I enjoy it and spend a good bit of time here. I know I have too many things in here, but I'm trying to do the best I can with what I have. I'm trying not to take over the whole house and turn the whole house into my sewing room. I do cut my fabric on the dining room table. I put down a large thick piece of vinyl, and then I put cutting mats on top of it, and I use that to cut it out. So I've done a little bit of a reorganization, and I like it. I think it's going to work well for me. And let me know, how do you have your sewing room organized? I do have a plan for managing all the extras, and I've linked to a video above. I've already started reducing my stash. I'm working with Maddie from Maddie Sews on the project Dress a Girl, where you sew dresses for impoverished girls all around the world. There'll be more information coming in September, and I've linked Maddie's information and information on Project Dress a Girl below. Thanks for joining me in my sewing room, and I'm wishing you a joyful week where you find the good in all things, especially sewing. Bye!